Hi, peace be upon you, folks. Now, the topic I'm about to present on, and many other topics in the future, by the grace of God, you can find in other websites, more articulated and more briefly presented. However, I hope you find this presentation interesting, and I hope you look forward or you listen to my other presentations, and I hope it stimulates you towards the path of seeking truth. I also want you to be aware of some of these websites that claim to be presenting the truth. Most of them just seek to discredit others. And if you don't do your research and if you don't open your mind and you follow them blindly, uh, you would be led astray, because most of the time they quote verses and explain those verses in the wrong way. They don't. Sometimes, to me, it doesn't even appear as if they try to seek the truth. This presentation is going to be on God and the universe, and the creation story of the universe and the creation story of Adam. Um, I feel like this is very important because today you find that most of the people who claim not to believe cite some of the creation story, especially in the Bible. And I don't. And I say in the Bible, I don't say this in terms to discredit the Bible. People who disbelieve would always seek reasons not to believe. Whether it's one day it would be this reason, another day it would be that reason. Sometimes I think it's because people don't want to reform their lives. They don't want to make changes. They don't want to. They don't want to restrict their souls. They want to follow their intentions. They don't want to follow their inclinations. They want to follow their desires. So people are always going to seek reasons not to believe. But if there's somebody out there who's actually interested, then hopefully this clarifies some things. I put that in the title, when's the judgment day? I want to make this disclaimer in the beginning before somebody thinks I deceived them into listening to this presentation. I'm not going to give any particular date, um, and I'm not going to cite some uh, obvious fact. What I'm going to do is philosophize and use what we already know from Scripture to come up with an idea of when is Judgment Day, because the universe is based on laws, and the day of judgment, I believe, uh, there's a law towards what happens on the day of judgment. So I'll be looking at the day of judgment in the grand scheme of the universe, what it means to the universe for the day of judgment to arrive, and when will that be. uh, the Bible cites the 6 days of creation, and then the Bible says God rested on the seventh day. Um, this has been taken literally. God doesn't rest. God is not in need of rest. And even if you read the Bible, I'm sure you would find verses that tell you that God doesn't get tired, neither does he get sleepy. The Quran also says that God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. Then he established himself above the throne. Now, this is not a physical establishment. God is not an object. He's not a form. He created all time and all space and all the dimensions of existence. He doesn't need any of those to exist. He needs neither time nor space to exist. So you can't say, oh, God is sitting somewhere, God is standing somewhere. God is not a structure. God is not bound by time. He's not bound by space. The Bible, some people have taken the days of creation to be literal earth days, 24-hour days. I find this very delusional, very self-deluding, very arrogant, because the people who claim this sometimes, they claim to be scientists, and because they believe in reason, they don't want to believe in a God. But if you believe in science and you believe in reason, then you know that even in our solar system, there are planets that have longer days than ours. There are planets that their days can last up to 100 of Earth days or 200 of Earth days. So why is it that you would think, after you've already said there may be life in other planets, why is it that you would think when the Bible says, or a day of creation, it means a 24-hour day? Some people have used that and said, okay, that means the earth or the human creation is 7,000 years ago. This might be true. It might be true to the last Adam. And I say the last Adam, which is a topic I'll talk about, because I believe there have been several Adams. So it might be true that since the last Adam, it was about 7 years ago. But we shouldn't take this as earth days. When God says a day, it means a period, an eon, so to speak. It can be thousands of years, it can be millions of years, it can be billions of years. And the scientists who don't believe would also tell you that time is relative. There's no standard, so to speak. Everything in this universe is based on some sort of relativity. So there's not necessarily a center or a reference point. So the universe, we can look at the universe, I think, as a factory or a computer program. Take a computer program. A computer program can do several tasks, and it's made up of sub-programs called routines, subroutines. Let's say there's a computer program, a house that has been computerized, and the computer program is attached to a time, so it knows that at certain times it performs certain tasks. So if we take, so let's say at 6 o'clock, it turns the coffee maker on. And at noon, when everybody's maybe gone to work or gone to school, it turns the dishwasher on when the dishes are all in the dishwasher. So it will be based on time, and it will perform these tasks. But also with that, there has to be somebody who would have put maybe water in the coffee maker, a clean pot, put some coffee and a coffee filter. So this is how I see the universe, and God has assigned angels to certain tasks. And as a factory, God is creating things. He's using the universe for several purposes. When God creates, God is all wise. He doesn't create randomly. So he's using the universe for several purposes. You have diamond, you have gold, you have certain things that are being created in different conditions. And God creates the conditions for which these things can be created. Carbon, for example, can form coal or it can form diamond under different conditions of pressure and temperature. So God has assigned certain conditions, certain states. And he has assigned all the states, even to the soul, even not just the matter. So God has assigned states to everything. And he shows us how he does these things. He teaches us. As it says in the Quran, and I think also in the Bible, that God showed Adam the names of the things. This is not just taking things as, oh, that's a cat, that's a dog, but taking things for their actual name, their true names, which we might not understand right now. God knows best what he means by that. But I think we're learning now about our universe. We're learning the elements. We're learning the conditions for creating these elements, the conditions that God has created. Everything with technology, we're learning more and more, and God teaches us. So a day in creation is whatever time period God assigned for that creation. God decrees what should be created. He decrees the period it should be created. Within his wisdom, some things can take longer. So the days are not necessarily equal days. God can decide to have the first day, let's say, or the second day, maybe the creation of the mountains and all that, maybe have it longer than the creation of like the species in the water, and then maybe that longer than the species on land until the creation of man. And since man was supposed to be the caliph of the earth, the caliph means the one who is given charge of the earth, the one who kind of reigns on the earth and takes care of it. He would have to be created last, because you can't create the caliph before the things he has to take charge of. So the Quran tells us, makes it clear that these days are not 24-hour days. God assigns these days. These are just time periods. For example, there's a part in the Quran where it says, a day with your Lord is 1,000 years. And within that context, and I should point out that verses in the Quran have to be taken within a context, have to be read and understood within a context. So within that context, scholars have studied it and have said, in heaven, in paradise, every day is 1,000 years compared to the earth days. So you can be living for 2 days, which is 2,000 of earth years. But that is nothing, because whether it's 1,000,000 years, 1,000,000,000 years in paradise, you're going to go on forever. So that will just pass by. And if you look at the amount of things we have here on earth in this short lifespan, how much entertainment we've created, how much jobs we've created. So imagine with the creativity of God, how much more you can have. You're not going to get bored. You're not going to get tired in heaven. You're not going to get sleepy. And by analogy, I want you to consider this. If you take the amount of knowledge that all of mankind and probably even all of jinn have been given, it's like if you dip your hand in an ocean and you remove it, your finger in an ocean and you remove it, the amount of water that stays in your finger, that's the amount of knowledge all of the mankind have been given compared to the amount of knowledge that God has. So imagine in heaven, there's going to be there's going to be myriad of things to keep you entertained, to keep you happy. And this will go on forever because God is not limited. God is infinite in his abilities. In another part in the Quran, it says a day which is a length of 50,000 years. And in that verse, scholars have studied it and said what it means is the day of judgment is going to be 50,000 years. That's just the day of judgment, which would be maybe from the first blowing of the horn, everything in the heavens and the earth dies, and then the second blowing, maybe the earth is crushed, a new earth is created, and then the bodies are being put back together, the bones, the flesh, the skin, the blood, and then life is breathed into that. Every soul finds its body. And you're not necessarily going to be recreated in the same body you had when you were on earth. And after that, we get up from the ground, the grave, so to speak, and we move towards a place where the throne of God will be projected, where you would face the judgment, where everybody's secrets will be put on trial in public. And that will be a difficult day. Some people will not be able to walk on that day. Some people would be dragging on their stomachs. You wouldn't be able to refuse the call. You would have to move towards the place where the throne is being projected. But some people would have it easy. Some people would even be on horses. It all depends on what you strove for on earth, how swiftly you move towards God, how you strove towards pleasing God and earning his approval. So that's it on clarifying the days. And I don't think that should be a big deal, But people would always find reason to disbelieve. The God says in the Quran, it says, he created the heavens and the earth. He created 7 heavens, one above each other. And he inspired in each heaven its command. And he adorned the lowest heaven with lamps, that is stars, the sun, and other stars. So what this says is, each heaven has its command. The same laws that operate in this lowest heaven, which I think the whole universe that we observe, and we don't even observe that much of it. We can't even observe up to 5% of the universe. So this whole universe, I think, is the lowest heaven that has the stars and all that, to give the light and to show the directions. And they also serve other purposes, wherein as a factory things are being created, elements are being created. And I believe these elements are being created also for the hereafter, because we know in Islam that your heaven and your hell is always being created based on your actions. And on the day of judgment, for the people who would be in hell, for example, God might show them what they might have achieved, what they might have obtained if they had believed and worked righteousness. So each heaven has its laws. And in here we've learned some of these laws. The laws of motion, the planets moving in their elliptical orbits, what happens when matter is attracted to each other, what are the laws of circular motion, what are the laws when a force is acting on an object. But there are also laws to the soul, which we've not really learned properly, and God knows these laws, and God creates the conditions, God creates the limits. So for example, an object on earth that is a big object moving at a very low speed, maybe less than the speed of sound, in fact, that object would have laws that are say, for example, speed equals distance over time, right? If you traveling a certain speed, covering a certain distance, you can do it at a set time period. But also there are laws about objects that are very small, let's say about an atom size or smaller than an atom, that are moving at about a fraction of the speed of light, so close to the speed of light. So let's say 0.5 times the speed of light, half the speed of light, or 0.9 times the speed of light. These objects have they observe a different mathematics. So God has created the limits. God has created what the things don't transgress, whether it's matter, whether it's a wave, whether it's a soul. And he's the knowing. He creates the foundations of the universe. And God says he creates in truth. So if you create and you've created the foundations and you build on that foundation, you don't build upon it with something that contradicts what you already have at the foundation. And if you build, then you know. For example, if somebody builds an elevator, they know what the tension strength of the strings are. So they can be able to say, what is the safe limit of weight to put in the elevator? That's God creating the souls and the matter, and He creates the laws that we don't transgress. And God says, it says in the Quran that you can't cause failure to God in the heavens or on earth, and His plan is firm. So He lets us be deceived sometimes. We think we're doing well. We think we are. God doesn't see us, but He does. So every heaven has got its laws that God has inspired into it, and the lowest heaven, God has adorned it with lamps. And what we know about this universe is the cosmic limit is light. That is interesting. If you, for example, listen to a train coming towards you, the sound might get louder. Also, the frequency might get faster. And the speed you measure the sound at might be faster as well, because you have to add the speed of the train and the speed of the sound. And then when it's moving away from you as well, it might not be the speed will change, the frequency will change. When it comes to light, the frequency would change, but the speed never changes. Whatever your reference point is, when you measure the speed of light, it's always going to be the same, which is the 3 times 10 to the power 8 meters per second, which is 300 million meters per second, or 300,000 kilometers per second. That is really fast. If you take, for example, the light from the sun, it takes about 8 minutes to get to the earth. So imagine how much distance light can do in one day or a whole year. That distance is what is called a light year, the distance light travels within a year. Now you have objects that are far from us, that are millions of light years away from us, billions of light years away from us. So what that means is, what we see at this period is how the object appeared a million or a billion years ago, because it's only taken the light that amount of time to reach us. So that's the light is the cosmic limit, and by measuring these things, we can be able to tell a lot about the universe. If we measure the intensity of some of these oldest stars, we can tell how old they are. We can tell whether they're moving away from us or towards us. So by studying some of these facts, what scientists have come up with is that the universe was once a small object, smaller than an atom. So the universe had a beginning. In fact, when somebody put this hypothesis, the term Big Bang was used to mock them. Because scientists, they didn't believe in God, and so they didn't believe the universe had a beginning. They believed it was always a solid state. It always existed like this. So to say the universe had a beginning means it must have been created. There was something at its beginning that gave it its beginning. And that's God, who doesn't have a beginning or an end. He created all beginnings and all ends. He created time. It's hard to imagine something without a beginning and an end nowadays. But the scientists believed the universe was a solid state system. So the term Big Bang was used to mock those who postulated that, in fact, the universe had a beginning. So that in itself should tell you that there must be a God. If something had a beginning, then it's very reasonable, if you say you're a scientist and you deal with reason, that it was created. And the Quran also tells you that it would have an end as well. The Quran also says, don't the disbelievers see that the heavens and the earth were one substance united until we broke it apart, and it is us who are steadily expanding it. And sometimes when the Quran says, don't the disbelievers see, it seems like it's addressing the scientists of today, because it's they who study the universe and they're supposed to see. So the Quran had already talked about the Big Bang, even before, even 1,400 years ago. We tend to overlook the Quran. We tend to not take it too seriously. The Quran puts an example. It says, if this revelation had been revealed to a mountain, you would see the mountain coming down from humility, crumbling, like falling apart from humility and out of fear. This was just an example so mankind sees that this is a glorious Quran, this is a great Quran. So when we read the verses, let's not just skim through. Let's not just think, oh yeah, not a big deal, so what? So the Quran had already talked about the idea of the Big Bang and the expanding universe, even before scientists discovered it, because they only recently discovered it. God created, and I think that's the pair of this existence. Like you have the pair of the night and the day. This temporary existence will come to an end, and it's paired with the permanent existence, the eternal life. We're in your image, which is the eternal image, which I think that's what the Bible meant when it says God created man in his image, because God is not an object or an image, but God created you with an eternal soul, an eternal spirit. The universe had a beginning, then when is its end? Now we've said the cosmic limit in this universe is the speed of light. At least that's the knowledge we have. And we know that things are moving relative to each other at certain speeds. Some scientists have measured the speed at which certain galaxies are large, and some of them are moving at almost the speed of light, relative to us. So I think the fabric that holds the universe together, it has been built on a certain law that God inspired upon it. So there's a certain amount of force that it can hold, and an object that's moving at a certain speed would carry with it a force. So I think once these objects are moving relative to each other and they reach some sort of an average, or they exceed the speed of light, I think then they tear the fabric of space and time. I think that's when the day of judgment is, when it comes to what it means in the universe. Because it says also in the Quran that the heavens would open, they would tear apart on the day of judgment. So I think that's what it means. I think once and this is just speculating, this is just philosophical thinking, just interesting. Don't believe it, believe it. No, don't even believe it, just entertain it. So I think once the galaxies and all the objects are moving relative to each other at a certain average speed, at a certain speed that's close to, or once they exceed the speed of light on average, in a sense, I think that will tear what's holding them together. It will tear the fabric of space and time. Another reason why I believe this is because the Quran also says, don't something into the effect, don't the disbelievers look into the heavens and then think that maybe their time has come near. So we study the universe and we can tell, like I said, from the intensity of some of these stars, how old they are, how soon they would die, when we think they would die, and all that. So we know that some things are coming to an end at a certain time period or soon. So maybe also we can study the universe and tell, like, maybe its end is coming soon. Maybe it will soon come time that it will tear apart. So we know the universe had a beginning and an end. This alone should be able to make us think about our lives and do more investigation and care. Because if you're just going to live 30, 40, maybe even 100 years on earth, then what is your task? Just to get a job, work for the corporation? That you think that would be an important aim of this life? And you've not even studied and wondered what is going to be your hereafter, what is going to be after your death. So the Quran says God created the heavens and the earth in 6 periods, and then he established himself above the throne. The throne is the largest creation of God. They say if the heavens and the earth, the 7 heavens and the earth, if they were thrown, it's like a ring thrown into a desert when you compare that to the kursi, which is the footstool. And the footstool is like a ring thrown in the desert when you compare it to the throne. So that's how big the throne is. The throne is so much bigger than the footstool, and the footstool is so much bigger than the heavens and the earth. And the throne is not for God to sit on it, but it's just a manifestation, God manifesting his power and his majesty. It also has a purpose. God doesn't create without a purpose. We would know more of these things later on by the grace of God. So it says God established himself on the throne after the 6 days of creation. If you look at it as a computer program, I think this is like saying to the computer program, now we start. Here are the laws. I've written everything down. Here are the periods. You don't know. I've created already, but they're in the unseen. Now I'm going to assign tasks to certain things, certain angels, for example, and they're going to create at certain periods what I've already created. They're going to bring it from the unseen to the seen. And I think that's what we see in the universe. When we see how these elements are created in the stars, we see how it starts with the hydrogen, it gets heavier, the elements get heavier, until it reaches a point when the star dies, it explodes. And that explosion gives it more energy for it to be able to create even heavier elements. So I think this is like also a factory where God creates. He creates, for example, the elements that maybe you would use in the hereafter to build a person's paradise, a person's throne, because people in paradise are going to have thrones, and then your throne might be a whole star system, a whole galaxy system. It's going to be large. You can't it's not something you can imagine. And the diamonds here are not going to be similar to the diamonds in heaven or the gold. They say whatever you can imagine or whatever you can see, it's not in heaven. So if you can imagine it or if you can see it here on earth, then it's not even fit to be in heaven. So I think people confuse the first creation of Adam in paradise with the creation of man or Adam on earth.